maybe you've heard about HyperRig Kiesel. Maybe you've seen my little overview that I did on the McLaughlin YouTube channel. But today here on the PolyChrome channel, I want to give you a little bit of a slower paced, more thorough run through HyperRig Kiesel, because this plugin is super cool, it's very special, and I'm excited to show you through it. There's some secrets and some hidden gems that I think you're going to dig as well. So hey, let's dive right into it, shall we? Alright, so this is the first preset that you're going to see when you load HyperRig Kiesel. And the first thing that you're going to notice, especially if you're coming from the McLaughlin suite, is the navigation. I really love this. It's something that we've been working on for a while, and it adds a lovely, beautiful, clean aesthetic to the plugins. And we're starting off with the pre-effects, going into the speakers, and then the dual EQ section and our post effects. And if you double click on any of those icons, you can actually disable the section. Maybe you just want to use like that reverb on a vocal or something like that. You could absolutely do that. So you just double click on those guys and they will turn the entire section off. It was really the amps that we started to work on first for this product. You know, when amps sound right and they feel right, they just get your creative juices going. And I remember distinctively we hit that point with the amps. I was like, these are absolutely wicked, very cool. It was really great to see the evolution of our DNA, not only visually, but sonically as well. Yeah, so push is like really cool because you can add that little bit of extra saturation with it, but it opens up additional harmonics and overtones into the tone as well. Really nice. We really wanted and succeeded at making HyperRig Kiesel sound great, even at the default settings with everything at noon. You don't have to work very hard to get great tones with HyperRig Kiesel. A lot of users that just want to load something and get a great tone that works for a record or a live situation or any kind of performance situation. Of course, we have some really great tools to really cater to the guys that like tweaking. Me, I love tweaking things, you know, I'm a tinkerer, you know, I always play around with my tones, and I get really excited when I figure out a new way of getting a different type of tone to happen. Like, let's say I want a little bit more of a spongier overdrive, and I'm like, what happens if we turn the level down and the gain up and set the overdrive like this, and then it works? It's like really fun. I love that, but not everyone does. This plugin is obviously filled with presets as well. So if you're one of those guys that you just want to load a preset, absolutely go for that. The first thing I would do, I would get a very kind of rough characteristic that you like. So that's going to really be choosing your amplifier, choosing a speaker to go with it. Now bear in mind, on HyperRig Kiesel, you can now choose which family of speakers you're using. And that's great because it gives you a lot of tonal options for each amp. So for example, that 2x12 on Carbon, we're hearing a little bit more of a kind of a scooped sound with a little more brightness. That double tracked, that might be like a very early 90s type metal tone, you know, think early Metallica even, you know, where there was a lot of sort of brightness in some of those distorted tones. But then you switch over to Carbon, and then you go to the second speaker in Carbon, which is a 4x12, and it's much more rounded, and so on and so forth. So when you're creating tones, you know, that's how I would think of it. I would really get your sort of rough vibe and your palette first, and then dive into shape EQ and a little bit of mastering EQ if you feel it's required. There's nothing wrong with just running the head and the speaker, because those speakers, they're already fully produced speaker chains. So it's not like we just took an SM58 or a 57 and put it in front of a cab and said, capture it. We actually took all of the signal, the preamps and the final EQ and everything to kind of give you that mix ready, fully produced speaker chain. So you might not need to add much EQ. And certainly if you find yourself doing big scoopy changes and stuff like that, then you might want to rethink your approach to tones in some way. Maybe that's your thing. No judgment, no judgment. maybe by now you've got some IRs that you really love and you want to load them straight in. So it's as simple as this. Right click, load an IR. Now for me, I have some Ola England IRs that I recently purchased from his store. Let's try it. So I know Ola, he likes a lot of bass in his speakers. You know, he likes to feel it in the room somewhat. And that's where the low cut could really come in and kind of tame some of Ola's personal taste for lower bass frequencies. And same for the top end, you know? Maybe you want to bring some more of that air out of the speaker. We could add wide. Sounds great, you know, without doing anything. But you know, you could go in and scoop it out, bring out some treble. You could do all sorts of stuff. So it's very intuitive and you don't need to work very hard. You know, you're just going to get great tones very easily. Going back to the time where we just finished the development, I was just getting lost in the moment so often, and it kind of reminded me of, you know, when I was a kid and it was all just about playing and discovering like how your guitar sounds through an amp. It really did bring me back to that kind of feeling as a guitarist. You know, these amps, they not only sound great, but they have excellent feel under your fingertips when you're playing through them. Really beautiful to play. You can bring sparkle and bass and give it more of that scoop sound. With just a little bit of room is one of my favorite clean tones. Yeah, so really easy to just get great clean tones. Another brand new design, and it's 7 parameters all in a single amount knob. All of those parameters get adjusted in different ratios. So it's not just like 1 to 10 on everything. Some parameters have a range of like 1 to 10, 1 to 6, 1 to 3, 1 to 5. So all these things that you would typically adjust on like a rack mount studio compressor is all in the compressor pedal, but just under a single knob. And I love it. It's like, it's really easy to get those spanky tones. And then, of course, you can push it to the extremes that I love doing for all of the hybrid picking, you know, where you're doing all those hammer-ons out of nowhere and stuff like that. It works really great, and it sounds excellent. So that's probably my new favorite compressor of all time, just the compressor and the HyperRig Kiesel. It's really great. I want to tell you a couple of secrets about this plugin. Things that Kiesel might not even know. We don't tell them everything here at PolyChrome. Keep some secrets. So when you turn on, let's say, boost, for example, on a lot of amps, when you put that boost pedal on, it gets considerably louder, and it might get a little bit harsher. What we do is when we turn on boost pedal, we automatically reconfigure the amp a little bit, where we adjust some levels, we adjust a couple of the frequencies, and we also adjust some of the tube settings just to set it up a little bit more for pedals. It's those kind of little details that I think really make this plugin very special. The boosters are great. It's basically like a modern vintage tube screamer style boost pedal. Spend some time with the gain kind of cranked up a little bit, and then see, you know, how you can get those classic rock tones. If you want to fatten that up a little bit, you're like, hey, that sounds good, but I just want a little bit more oomph, just turn on the mastering EQ, and anywhere between about 100 and 200 hertz, just a little bit like this. You can always come into the speaker section and crank up the resonance as well. When you turn on the chorus, there's two modes. There's a classic mode, which is very wide. It's got a beautiful stereo image. I love this chorus. I really liked how the swirl mode sounded, but on distorted tones, I thought it would be cool to have something that gave you a little bit of a different sort of tone as well. Because chorus is post-speaker, because it's stereo, it's after the speaker chain, we also embedded a little custom EQ section that, again, is hidden, but it just means that when you turn on the classic mode, you get a different, more bright sound. And when you turn on the swirl mode, you actually get a slightly different mid-range, a different bass frequency range, and the top end is also adjusted. And it works especially well for gain stuff, because typically chorus, in my opinion, doesn't always work lovely on high gain or rock, you know, metal tones. You know, it's not your average everyday effect, you know, but it helps it work a lot better in that scenario. Let's move on to something else that's brand new. That is HyperTune. Man, this thing is a long time in the works. Boy, is it exciting. HyperTune is the only transposer that I will ever use now for music, for production, for recording, you know, a live stream, live concerts. It is so responsive. It just feels like you're playing your native guitar tones. It's really, really cool. And I want to show you a little bit more about it. Let's just load up 3, 2, 1 action. That is a very action-packed name. I honestly love it. Now, this is a little bit like bittersweet for me, because you guys might have seen that recently I got an 8-string guitar, and the reason I got the 8-string was so I could do all of this downtune stuff with like splits. You know, that kind of twangy, that's just such a badass sound. But now I can do it with the same feel on my 6-string guitar. I'm not grabbing my 8-string nearly as much. In fact, I haven't picked it up once since I've got HyperTune, but I will find a reason to use the 8-string. Apart from that feeling blisteringly fast, it doesn't feel like it's lagging behind like a lot of transposers on the market do, and it's really off-putting. It just, you know, you can't play fast, you can't sweep, you know, like... I mean, that's down an octave and I'm sweeping, you know, not the best sweeping in the world, mind you, but, you know, I'm playing very fast, and it's like, it just feels real time. I'm going to give you 2 chords to try with maybe another transposer that you might have in your collection. Try this and just listen to what happens to your other transposers. 3 harmonics at the 12th fret, and then play that C note here on the 8th fret on the E string. Okay, let me drop it down a good amount, 7 again. Okay, So try that, and then try it on HyperTune, and then you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The difference will be one is usable, one is not usable. Try this chord, play an A minor chord like this. Let me show you the notes at concert pitch first. Take an A minor chord, lift off your third finger, and just put that on the octave. Your spare pinky, stick it over on this fourth fret on the G string, the B note. Okay, or we can just pluck those the four strings. Try going down 5. Try that, see what happens, and you'll hear all sorts of chaos. And HyperTune, it's able to handle all these chords with a lot of dissonance inside of them and just sounds very, very natural. But it does it at such a speed that really makes it very special. And yeah, I'm just obsessed with it. Now I use it for my bass. So for example, let's load up Dirty Bass, maybe Dirty Bass 2. That's a clean tone down an octave, and it's just so cool. When you're creating really heavy tones, no matter if it's for rhythm or for shred, often I find it's a very good idea to have this kind of push-pull. Maybe that's you having lots of bass in the amp, but you're tightening up the tone on the front end. So one compensates the other, but the end result is often quite pleasing. If we try that, and we'll turn the gain all the way down, so it's hardly doing any gain, it's just there as a sort of shaper for the front end. So you can actually hear there, as let's turn the gain down for a second, as I adjust that knob, because it's literally restricting the frequencies going into the amp. There's less volume coming out of the pedal because the gain is frequency dependent. So if you're using a lot of tight, you might want to have more level and more gain to go with it. We've reimagined the reverb for HyperRig Kiesel, even in the most extreme settings of being almost outside of your speakers, because it's very wide. It's also shaped quite differently to any of the reverbs that we have in the McLaughlin suite. So again, it's very sweet, very natural sounding, and it just works so well either with Maple or the gain amps. When it comes to dialing in your delays, one thing I like to do is I like to get the delay to a point where it's barely audible, and that's where the filters with ducking really comes in very useful. I sometimes take a little bit at my bottom end, but often I take quite a bit of the treble out of the delay, because that, as we bring the filter down, starts to take out more of that treble frequency. Maybe a little bit more bass, a little bit more treble. Obviously we've got a lot of mix on here and there's no ducking, so it kind of sounds like it's the type of tone where delay is very much a part of it. But I love to use the ping pong mode personally with ducking, and often I use about 20 to 30% ducking. So even though we have 41% mix here, which is quite a lot of delay still, now with the ducking on, so it's panning back and forwards, it's getting ducked, and it's just leaving more of a space for me to kind of play my riffs in the center of the speaker. So I love that approach. I use ping pong probably the most, followed by wide. I use my MIDI pedal boards mostly to switch presets, and because the preset switching is so fast in HyperRig Kiesel, even in a live situation through a massive PA system, you don't get the dropouts, you don't get the big clunks as your presets change. It's very fast, very seamless, so it would absolutely be a great situation to have like 4 of your favorite tones, clean, rhythm, low gain, shred, whatever it might be, just ready to trigger. There's a couple of ways that you can set this up. Just click the MIDI button in the bottom left here and add a new MIDI line, choosing CC preset or program change, choosing a preset, and what MIDI channel. Maybe you're using MIDI channel 3 and different program change numbers, but immediately once you hit that button on your floor controller, bang, it'll just change to that tone or preset, and that's it. And you can stack these up, go absolutely crazy, do all sorts of fun stuff with MIDI. You could also right click on the knobs and MIDI learn, so if you have like an expression pedal, maybe you want to go and adjust the reverb mix with an expression pedal. Sky's the limit with MIDI. If you have any questions on this stuff, jump over on our Discord. There's lots of awesome users like yourself. I'm there, the team's there. So if you have any questions on setting this up, get involved with the community. I'll leave the link to the Discord in the description below. Let's talk about inputs real quick. So each audio interface, unfortunately, can be slightly different. And a lot of people, they have their input settings quite hot. Let me show you how I have mine set up. So if I'm playing a clean amp just like this with a split position on some passive Kiesel pickups, you're seeing basically blue and green around the input knob. It's not going into the orange or red. As I go to my humbucker, we're seeing orange, especially on my biggest chord. It's not permanently in the red. So if I just turn the output down and crank the input here, if your level is permanently pinned like that, then that's a signal that you need to drop the signal down on your audio interface a little bit, just so you've got more of a balanced input signal level and it's not too hot. I'll leave the link for HyperRig Kiesel down in the description below, and definitely get subscribed for more videos like this in the future. Enjoy, and I'll catch you back here real soon. Take care. Cheers.